everyone, and welcome back to another video. My name is Tilly and I'm a strength and conditioning coach with my bachelor's and my master's in exercise and sports science. Now today is going to be a little bit of a different style of video. I asked some of you guys to send in some programs, and so I thought I would give you some feedback and maybe give some suggestions as to things that you could change or where we could improve to make that program really effective. I've had a brief look at them to start, but not really in a lot of detail, so we're going to get into it right now. As always guys, it would be amazing if you could like and subscribe. It would really help the channel grow, and I would absolutely love to have you be a part of this little community that we got growing here. Now, the first program was sent in by a rugby player. She is in season at the moment, and the main goal of her program, as designed by their S&C coach, is to maintain strength. So you can see we've got some pause, trap bar deadlifts, barbell bench press, hip thrusts, and then some couple of supersets going on. This sounds like it would be really fun. I'm really liking the sets of trap deadlifts. I like hitting threes, particularly when you're in season. You might not want a lot of volume, so getting lower reps but higher weights moving can be a really good way to maintain strength even when you're doing 1 to 2 sessions a week or you're not gymming as much as you would like to. The barbell bench press, equally, I really like. Hip thrust is an interesting choice. I've got a whole video about that, but I think it makes sense because a trap bar deadlift is kind of a little bit more of that squat pattern, and so a hip thrust, I guess they're trying to hit more of the posterior chain but without overloading that lower back, because we're kind of getting that in the trap bar deadlift as well. Reps of 6 to 8, that's pretty good for maintaining, I would argue, more hypertrophy than strength, particularly in season. I've never heard of a split stance calf raise before. The reason why you would do a calf raise with a bent leg instead of a straight leg is because you have two main muscles in your calf. You have the gastrocnemius and you have the soleus. The gastrocnemius is biarticular, so it goes across your knee joint and a part of your ankle. So when you bend your leg, you're taking away part of the action of that gastrocnemius and you're biasing the soleus muscle. So it can be a really good way to hit a different part of that calf. Also, kettlebell plank drag through, great exercise. I love that. Super challenging. Highly recommend you guys to check that out. And a half kneeling payoff press is really interesting. I love a payoff press. They're so good. There's so many things you can do with it. You can do it in a lunge pattern. You can do it on one leg. You can do it moving. You can do it isometrically, which means there's no change in the muscle length. There's so many different ways you can do it, and it's a really challenging core exercise. Highly recommend again. There's not a lot that I would change here, to be honest. I know that's a really boring answer, but I feel like there's like a low amount of reps. It probably wouldn't be too fatiguing. So maybe like a barbell row instead, if maintaining strength was my main thing. Just that would reduce some time that we have to spend in the gym, because when you've got 2 single limb exercises back to back, then that superset will actually take quite a long amount of time. Good program. Next. This next program that was emailed in, I have so much detail. I'm going to put some of the detail there for you. The main goal here, I believe, is to reduce sarcopenia associated with age and associated with Parkinson's disease, which apparently has weakened the left side of this person's body and has caused some muscle asymmetry. So you can see day 1, we've got all upper body exercises. So we've got bicep curls, hammer curls, wader curls, which are cool. Don't really hear about that often. And we've got a lot of volume, which I love. We've got 6 sets of 15 reps and 4 sets of 15 reps. I think this person has also mentioned that they're training relatively close to failure just because when they pick up heavier weights, then they feel more of a strain on their connective tissue. So my main suggestion for this person would be to try and pick up a heavier weight, maybe even if it's 1 set a week. We just want to try and challenge your system in a different way, because there's this thing called the SAID principle, which is the specific adaptations to impose demands. So if you're only doing reps of 15, which is what we've got written here, then we're getting really good at doing reps of 15. So your body's going to become very efficient at doing that, and it has no real need to change what it's doing or get stronger or put on more muscle mass, because it's getting better at that, right? We're going to do a little bit of math here to try and help this person figure out what would be the next best intensity for them to work at. Now, there is a style of training called relative intensity. There are all of these sheets that strength and conditioning associations put out to give you an estimate of load or how much you could do as a repetition maximum. So for example, if we look at the National Strength and Conditioning Association loading chart, you can see the percentage of your rep max, and then you can see how many reps you could do and the approximate load in pounds, I believe this is. So if you were doing 90% of your rep max, you should only be able to do about 4 repetitions. Then using this document, you can then find out what your 1 rep max would be, for example. So it's a way of helping to estimate or program different loads. However, when we use these loads, you're working to failure because you're working to a repetition maximum. So for example, if I do 8.7 pounds in my squat, then my 1 rep max max should be 10 pounds. If I was to work along that top line, right, because that's where my load would be, then I would only be working at a maximum or to failure. Now, the relative intensity method suggests that we would work at a percentage of our set best. So if we assume that 15 reps of 15 kilo dumbbell is their rep maximum, because they said they're working quite close to failure, right? Then instead of doing that, we can vary the intensity that we program day to day by using relative intensity. So have a look at this table here. If you wanted to do a very heavy day, you would do 90 to 95% of the 15 kilos. So you're not working at the rep max, you're working just a little bit below. If you wanted to do a light day, you would work at 70 to 75% of your set best at 15 kilos. By varying it like that, maybe day to day within the week, then we can probably get a little bit more adaptation going on. That was a lot of talking, and I hope that made sense. For the person who sent me this, let me know. I'm happy to email you back and explain that in more detail if needed. But trying out relative intensity could be a different way of doing this rather than working at that rep max. By programming variations in that load as well and not working to failure, you might find that your strength improves equally. This person also says that they're doing 3 sets of body weight dips for 20 reps. Now that, I'm sorry, is crazy. Well done. That's awesome. Calisthenics has always been a mystery to me. So if you're good at that, that is A class. That's awesome. It's really cool how you're going and alternating between the different parts of the body. You see that you're going for pull exercises and then push exercises, and then we're going for the shoulders or the more like lateral frontal plane movements, which is really, really cool. I would also probably recommend, and I'm sure you've been doing this before and may just not be in this program, but throwing in some back exercises or things like that as well, particularly if we've got some issues with the arm and the shoulder region. So your lats, for example, they're also responsible for internally rotating your shoulder. They are definitely still a part of that arm shoulder region that I would look to strengthen if I was having issues in those particular areas. 1 set of push-ups to failure, you've got 35 reps. That is nuts. Well done. Another really cool way that we can build muscle, guys, and I think gets a bad rap, is by using machines, particularly if we have issues with balance or asymmetry. Machines can be a great and safe way to improve upon your strength, but it is relatively safe because you're not going to drop a heavy weight on you. You don't have to worry about anything like that, and you can load it in a safe way as well. So maybe throwing in some of those exercises could be a good way of pushing your strength a little bit more, but because you're not having to brace or balance yourself, because the machine is doing most of that for you, right? Because you can't move it out if you're pushing forward, then that can be a really good way to maybe lessen some of the strain on your connective tissues as well. There's absolutely no shame in using machines. I love machines. In that same respect, throwing in some machines or squats, leg extensions, leg curls, other than upper body, could also be a really good way to try and challenge yourself and get some more hypertrophy. But I think this person's doing awesome. I would throw in some more lower body if it was me personally, but yeah, it's awesome. I really like it. Thanks for sending it in. We're going to look at a program that my partner wrote for me that I have just started. So I haven't actually looked at the whole thing properly. I'm sure I'll have a lot of complaints, and I'm sure he will love to hear them. This is my first strength program following a hip replacement. And so the main goal here is to improve my strength and maintain some of the hypertrophy that I've been working on. So you can see I've been doing 4 full body days here. We've got pretty big movements, which I love. You can see here that my partner has opted to do a down set. So what that means is for some of the exercises, instead of focusing on strength with the 3x5, he's opted to give me a 1x10 as well. So it's 4 sets, but by doing that additional set, you're able to maintain some of the hypertrophy. Now this helps to prevent what we call adaptation stiffness. When you periodize your training like this and you focus on one goal at a time, so a block periodization is usually what it's called. So I'm going from hypertrophy to strength to power, for example. By adding in some hypertrophy work in the strength block, you're able to reduce the risk of injuries that can occur as you move from each block. And that's just because you're not completely changing the method of training. 4 sets of 5, so it's not too hard, and it's kind of like an easier shift from hypertrophy rather than going straight to like 4x3 or 5x3, something like that. So my only feedback for this program would be that there's not a lot of movement in the frontal plane. So when we move, there's like 3 main planes of movement. A lot of the work that we we do in the gym is a sagittal plane. So it's moving forward and backwards. But what we want to try and include is some movement in the frontal plane and the transverse plane. So you want to move side to side, as well as get some movements where you're rotating your body, just so that you don't get stiff and so that you're still maintaining that function across all planes of motion. I can see that my partner's actually left some of the exercises blank, so I have a feeling maybe after this video comes out, he'll throw in a couple more different movements there to try and get some exposure to different planes of motion. But other than that, I think that's a really cool workout. That looks like fun. I'm excited to let you know if I'm dead afterwards, yeah. Anyways, I think that's it for me today, guys. I hope that you learned something new. I hope I exposed you to some new ideas or just gave you a little bit more feedback on things that you already know to reaffirm confirmation bias. Yeah, we love it. If you like this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you'd like me to rate your program, please send it through. And as always, guys, any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thank you so much for sending in your stuff. I hope you guys have an amazing week ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.